May you have auspiciousness and causes of success. May you have the confidence to always do your best. May it take no effort and you're being generous, sharing what you can, nothing more, nothing less.
Welcome to Message Reveal. Message Reveal identifies a vibe, a message, or a story told through lyrics of a song. And you guys, if you rock with me every Monday, you know how we do. I tell you about a special guest. Now, if you're new to my platform, I thank you. I appreciate you for coming on. So let's get started so I can tell you a few things about our special guest. One, she's a birth worker. We'll find out about her journey in that. Number two, she's a vegan. We'll pick her brain about her perspective and why she's a vegan. And last but not least, you guys, I got to get this right. She's a audience enthusiast, audience enthusiast. She'll correct me. She'll give me more insight on that. So you guys, please put your hand together and welcome my special guest, Miss Amanda Stray.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for saying yes. I so appreciate you. I just want to tell my audience I was in Trader Joe's shopping. She was in Trader Joe's shopping, and I don't know how we end up saying something to each other, and I got a chance to find out all these great things about her. But before we get into her and her background and all these different things, I do want to share with you that this platform, this season, it's about love. Don't forget about the love. So many times we forget about the love in person, place, and things. Can you share a place where you forgot about the love and then the love actually brought you back? Can you share with us?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's interesting. The first thing that comes to mind when you say that is, I recently gave birth about 6 months ago to a surrogate baby. So I was a surrogate for a family, and it was a great experience overall. Really, really good experience. I don't have anything negative to say about it. But interestingly enough, after I gave birth, I did end up getting postpartum depression. This is my third pregnancy. I have two children of my own, and I had never experienced that before. And it was difficult. It was difficult to come to terms with. I think I was a little bit in denial about it at first, just kind of thinking like it will regulate, it'll be okay. And it was putting a lot of strain on my relationship and it was taking a toll on me. And I guess when you say forgot about the love, that's kind of what I think of is like, it was taking a big toll on myself. I was feeling really not good about myself, feeling really down, and it was taking a toll on my relationship with my husband. We were fighting a lot, and I think that's kind of like the epitome of forgetting about the love.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but we both started therapy, and we've been working on it and stuff like that, and that's really, really, really helped a lot. And the love is definitely back now.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I love that we can go through those spaces, but come back to
Yeah.
the center of love. And for me, love is the recipe for everything. I know people say, oh, love makes the world go round. It really does. And
Yeah.
because you were in a space that you were, so to speak, wasn't yourself, it affected everything around you, including
Yeah,
the love.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So since you were already brought it up, let me just get into it. It was later I was going to ask. So
Sorry.
what was the impetus or the catalyst for you to be a surrogate? And if you can kind of walk us through the process,
Yeah.
how you go through the process. Can you give me some background information?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something that I've always thought of. I've always been, it kind of goes hand in hand with being a birth worker. I've always been really fascinated, really interested by birth itself. It's a very fascinating process, and so it's something after having my own kids, and I did struggle with a little bit of infertility with my second child. It took us a little bit of time to conceive her. She was conceived with a little bit of medical intervention. So having that experience drove me even more to want to be a surrogate. Um, but I won't lie. I tell people this because a lot of people say like, "Oh, you're such a saint. You're so sweet. You're an angel." And while I appreciate that very, very much, um, there is a big financial incentive to being a surrogate. Yeah.
That's what I want you to definitely talk about. And
Yeah.
thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, helping a family achieve being able to have a child, I think is so important. Not that there's anything wrong with adoption or, not having your own biological children, but I think if somebody wants that or, can't have that, then I feel like they should be able to. So, that was definitely a factor. But like I said, I won't lie and say that the financial incentive wasn't a big incentive. It was really life-changing money for my family. We were able to pay off a all of our credit card debt. We paid off one of our cars. We were able to finally move into a house. Our entire adult lives we've lived in apartments with and with our two kids and stuff. So it was really really nice. But yeah, I mean, being a surrogate is an interesting process. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I decided to sign up with an agency. These agencies, protect you, protect the intended parents, make sure everybody's legally taken care of, all that kind of stuff. So I signed up with an agency, and then they do a whole process of like medical testing to make sure you're healthy. They do psychological evaluations to make sure that you're mentally healthy and well. They even did a psychological evaluation and some physical testing on my husband to make sure he was safe and healthy as well for me to be around as a pregnant person with somebody else's baby. Um, and then they, kind of put like a profile together on you. I sent them some photos of me, pictures of me with my family, things like that. And you match with a couple or a single person, you can put down your preferences if you have any preferences as far as like who you're willing to work with. For me, I was absolutely willing to work, to be a surrogate for anybody, gay couples, single people, straight couples, whatever. So I did end up matching with a gay couple. Only one of the dads was the person that I interacted with legally and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting process. You basically, after all of that, all of the medical testing and everything, and then the whole legal process is done, you basically do IVF. So I had to take all of the hormone shots and things like that for a couple of months. And then you do an embryo transfer. And thankfully, I got pregnant the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, because it can be difficult. Some transfers don't work out for whatever reason, and so you have to kind of start the process all over again of the hormones and the shots and things like that. But thankfully for me, I got pregnant first try, and it was a wonderful, healthy, no complications pregnancy. It went really, really well. Um, and yeah, gave birth to a healthy little baby girl in April of this year.
Wow.
And her dad was there holding my hand while she was born. It was very sweet. Yeah.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. And yeah, it's been, and thankfully, I mean, and it depends on you as a surrogate and it depends on the family or the parents, and what they're okay with.
Hmm.
But thankfully, the dad of the baby was okay with keeping in touch, and he every now and then, I can ask about her and send me
Oh,
photos and stuff like that. So that's really cute. And yeah, it's aside from the postpartum depression, it was a great experience.
yeah, I do want to dive back into that. So I
Yeah,
have had I can't think of I've had midwives,
yeah,
I've had doulas on,
yeah,
and each time I've brought up postpartum depression because a lot of times people are not able to identify the signs and the symptoms. They'll
yeah,
say, "Oh, I'm tired," or "It's because I just had a baby." Some of the things that you just talked
yeah,
about. What was it where you were able to say, okay, this is more than just being tired?
yeah,
Because some of it, I believe, is hormones deficiency as
for sure.
well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what was the part where you're like, okay, this is more than what it was?
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it was a little bit of being in denial in the beginning because you do think it's gonna be okay, it's gonna level out, things are gonna be fine eventually, it will stop. Um, and for me, I mean, postpartum mood disorders are so common. Depression is obviously the one that we hear about the most, but you can have postpartum anxiety, you can even have postpartum psychosis, which is a little bit more intense and scary. But for me, my postpartum depression, probably slash anxiety, wasn't so much like, oh, I can't get out of bed. I can't do things. I can't, I was still getting up every day, taking care of my children, keeping my house clean, things like that. But one of the biggest signs for me was that I was just feeling really bad about myself. I was feeling
Mm,
really insecure and having kind of almost these obsessive thoughts about myself. And then I was just very, very irritable,
mm,
which caused a lot of issues in my relationship because everything just set me off. I was
yeah.
very moody, and even with my kids, like just being on edge all the
Mhm,
time,
mhm,
to the point where it's causing a problem. And it was a couple months of that before I was really like something's not right. And I did go see a psychiatrist, and I did start taking an antidepressant, anti-anxiety, and that was so helpful. In the past, I think I've probably been someone who has internalized a little bit of the stigma about taking medication for mental health
mhm.
purposes. Um, so it was kind of difficult for me to make that choice. I've really tried over the last few years, and especially, working with other people and working as a birth worker and things like that to not be that way,
Yes.
not
Yes. I mean,
perpetuate the
I get it.
stigma.
I get it. I'm a
Yeah.
proponent of natural, but I
Yes,
know it is
for
a
sure.
time
Yeah.
that you may have to, if you're in an accident and you may have to take one. Although I am for natural, so
Yeah.
I do understand your
Yeah.
plight or your platform with that.
Yeah, and I am too. I mean, I had both of my own children at home.
Oh,
I'm very much, I mean, as a birth worker, I'm so in support of what anybody wants to do. I am just a lover of informed choice, and as long as
yes.
you're informed and you're making a choice based off of, science and research-based information, then whatever choice you make is completely 1000% fine. You know what I mean? I'm not a huge proponent for other people of one or the other. For myself personally, I'm definitely a little bit more natural minded. So it was a little bit difficult to come to that conclusion, but it was honestly so, so good, so life changing, so wonderful. And it's really made a big difference for me.
If I may ask, do you have a plan to wean yourself off of
Yes.
it? It's
Yes.
not just long term, because with
No. Yeah,
anything, we have to have a plan
for
for the
sure.
process.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do plan. I actually plan to next month to start weaning with the help of my psychiatrist, weaning off. And even my psychiatrist was like, because that's something I asked, like, how long are people usually on this medication? And she said 6 months to a year. And we're coming close-ish to 6 months for me. But I also plan to do another surrogacy, so that is
That's
that I have to.
good. That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to, not to interrupt you.
No, no,
That's what
that's
I
fine.
wanted to know. Were you in the space to do that actually again?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it really was a great experience. It was a great experience. And regardless of the postpartum depression, and now that I mean, because it's something when you intellectually and um, kind of you know about it, but you haven't experienced it yourself, it's a little bit different. But now that I have experienced it myself, I'm a little bit more adept at understanding the signs and understanding what that looks like for me and things like that. So I feel more prepared to enter postpartum again with the next one. Especially because, and this is not to say that obviously tons of people who breastfeed their babies or who aren't surrogates get, postpartum mood disorders. But it was kind of something that I wondered about because I breastfed both of my children, and obviously
Hmm.
breastfeeding, you get this regular oxytocin uh,
Yes.
boost.
That's true.
And
We cannot put that to the side because
yeah,
that is
yeah.
really a natural process to
Yeah,
help.
absolutely. Yeah. And so you're getting that, that chemical, that hormone to make you feel happy all the time. And you're getting that exchange between you and your baby, and maybe not having that this time. In some ways, postpartum was easier because I didn't have a baby to take care of, which was nice, but
Yes.
I think that that may have been a factor. Your body is going through so much hormonally, and you're not getting that exchange, you're not getting that input, that oxytocin and things like that. So maybe that was a factor. But now that I know that, I can be a little bit more prepared, mentally, physically, whatever, for next time. But I do plan to do another surrogacy for sure.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to dive in. I have some more questions
Yeah.
about that. But before we get started, I have to tell you, music has turned me all the way out in a amazing way.
Yeah.
And I say all of that to say, can you identify a song that has either blessed you, giving you perspective, or distracted you? But before you answer, my dear, there's rules to this.
Okay. All right.
If you can sing, I need you to sing your throw box out.
Oh, okay.
If you can rap, I need you to come hard in the paint. But
Yeah.
if you cannot do any one of those, I need you to say it bold with passion. Or we have a saying out in the streets, stand 10 toes down, so I can feel it.
Okay. Okay,
So,
well, I mean, to be honest with you, I did always want to be a singer when I was a kid. I was in choir all through school and stuff like that. So I guess I can sing for you.
okay,
Um, but can I say the name of the song first, or do you want me to?
absolutely. You can do
Okay.
whatever you like. You giving it to us.
Okay. So when I read this question, because obviously I, thought about all this beforehand, because I'm like, it's like a karaoke when someone's like, pick a song and you can't think of any song you've ever heard in your life before. So when you said lessons, distractions, or blessings, I thought of a blessing. Um, Something that has been transformative in my life is being a mom, which I think most parents could relate to.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's a song called Have It All by Jason Mraz. I'm not like a huge Jason Mraz fan in general, but I heard this song and it is I don't know, it just makes me think of my kids and like my hopes for them, because it's a very simple song about I just hope, basically the message is I just hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. I hope you um I hope you live life to the fullest, that you are yourself, that you don't feel like you have to be anybody else to be happy. I'm gonna look up the lyrics really quick, because I feel like I know the song by heart, but for some reason I can't think of the lyrics right now. So
No, it's definitely fine. And while you're looking
yeah,
up the song, I will touch base with what you said.
yeah,
I hope you're happy. We want our children, because I am a mother, to be
yeah,
happy with whatever they choose in life. We may have plans for them, but we still want them to be happy in their choices. So
yeah.
I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the biggest thing is just I want very much for my children to just do what makes them feel good, makes them feel happy. And yeah, for sure, sometimes we want things for our children, or we have hopes or dreams for them. But I think for me, my biggest hope and dream is that they just feel good about who they are, and they feel
Yes.
strong and confident to be who they are. And
And
that's,
love most of all.
yeah.
Know that they have love.
Okay, so I'll sing a little bit for you. Okay. Um May you have auspiciousness and causes of success. May you have the confidence to always do your best. May it take no effort and you're being generous, sharing what you can, nothing more, nothing less. May you know the meaning of the word happiness. May you always lead from the beating in your chest. May you be treated like an esteemed guest. May you get to rest. May you catch your breath. And may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Whoa, may the road less paved be the road that you follow. Whoa, well, here's to the hearts that you're gonna break. Here's to the lives that you're gonna change. Here's to the infinite possible ways to love you. I want you to have it all. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do have a beautiful
Oh,
voice.
thanks. Yeah,
I
thanks.
love what you said. Now you have, sometime I'm the student, sometime I'm the teacher. Today I'm the student, and I'm going to look up that song and
Yeah, it's
listen
really
to it.
good. Yeah. I mean, Jason Mraz, everyone kind of remembers that song like from like I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. I can't even think of the words, but yeah, it took me by surprise. I just heard it one day and I like started crying. I was like, "Oh, my children, this is what I want for them." So,
Yes,
yeah, sweet.
that was absolutely beautiful. And
Oh, thank
yes,
you.
I think you have another career. I know you're a birth worker, but you
Yeah.
might be a side singer somewhere
Yeah,
doing
that is super
uh,
sweet.
what do you call it? That 8 to 3 o'clock in the morning side gig.
It's funny because I was in choir all through school, like through elementary through high school, but I never learned how to read music. So
Well, I know some great people that do a wonderful job and they don't read music. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's all levels to the part of music, but I love that.
Thank you.
So we talked about you being a surrogate. At the beginning, I mentioned that you were a birth worker.
Yeah.
Break down, because birth workers can be midwives, they can be doulas, they can be wet nurse.
Yeah.
What part or what segment do you represent or you've participated in?
Yeah, so I like I said, I've always been so fascinated with birth. When I was a kid, I used to watch those, which looking back probably wasn't the best example of birth, but I used to watch those like, labor and delivery shows, and they were always very dramatic and women were always screaming in pain and stuff like that, but I was very drawn to it. Although I used to be very scared of giving birth. I was like, I think I'm gonna adopt kids. I don't want to give birth.
Wow.
But yeah, I've always just been very drawn to it. And then I watched this documentary. It was actually made by Ricky Lake. It's very interesting. It's a documentary called The Business of Being Born.
Ooh, you're the second person that mentioned that.
It's
I must
really
see it.
good. Yeah, it's really, really good. It's super good. It just talks all about, birth, especially in this country in America, and how we've sort of over medicalized the process. And it was really, really interesting. And then once I watched that, they had a follow-up series, and it was like episodes of a show that were about, just different aspects of birth. They talked about home birth, they talked to midwives, all sorts of stuff. And they had an episode on doulas. And I was super intrigued, and it felt like in that moment that, like, oh wow, this is what I could do that. This is what I meant to do, because I've never been very like medically inclined, and doulas don't do anything medical. I mean, you still have to have a lot of knowledge, a lot of, knowledge of the physiological process of birth and the body and, the anatomy and things like that. So there is some of that involved, but you don't have quite the responsibility, you don't have to do any
Like a
medical.
midwife, like a
Yes, yeah,
midwife
because a
would.
midwife is basically a doctor. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, so it was kind of like, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing, and I can't believe it, and like that could be so perfect for me. And I sort of immediately dove into it. I started like a certification program for that, and doing lots of research and studying, and all about the physiological processes, which I already knew, a bit about, but and just got more and more into it. And then I started that in 2014,
Oh, wow.
and I did get pregnant with my first daughter in late 2014. So really started around the time that I got pregnant, and I did my first three births as a doula while I was
Oh,
pregnant, which was really cool because I was able to, I mean, before that I had never seen a birth, like in person before. So I got to attend three births while
oh,
right before I had my own baby, which was really,
lucky you.
yeah, it was very, very cool. Um, and getting to see because obviously I did all, well, not obviously, but I did all of those births in a hospital setting, which was interesting to see that. And then experiencing my own home birth with my child and the difference between midwifery care and obstetric care and the difference of giving birth in a hospital and giving birth at home.
Can I pause you?
Yeah, yeah.
What is your personal preference since you've mentioned all three?
So, I mean, I very, very much personally prefer midwifery care and home birth, especially now because going back to being a surrogate, home birth and midwifery care was not an option as a surrogate.
Mm,
I had to have an OB. I had to give birth in a hospital, which was fine, and I knew that going into it. I was okay with it. And then obviously that experience of the care that I received, and then that experience of giving birth in a hospital myself, was very interesting. um, Midwifery care, I can say confidently, is head and shoulders
mm,
better than
mm.
obstetric care. Midwives are so personal. They remember you, they care about you, they spend an hour plus with you at every prenatal appointment. They put their hands on you. They get to know you and your baby so much more intimately. Um, Whereas an obstetrician just comes in, and I had a great obstetrician. She was very kind, very supportive. Um, but even still, she just came in for the 10 minutes and was like, "Hey, do you feel okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Cool, see you later," you know?
Yes,
So
it
very,
wasn't that bonding of really
yeah,
getting to know
yeah.
who you are.
Yeah, and just feeling supported, feeling like, and and something especially for like a first time parent or mother or birthing person, um, you know, you might have a lot of questions. You have a lot of fears, maybe
Of
things you want
course.
to, a midwife you can text or call anytime. They answer you. It's just much more personal. Whereas, with a doctor, you got to call the office and nobody ever answers and no one's going to call you back. And then you have to Google it and then,
No, you're telling the truth on that
yeah.
whole experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was really interesting, but so as far as being a doula is concerned, I did primarily birth doulas. So I would attend, actual labors and births. That was what I enjoyed the most. It's a difficult job, to be honest, mostly in the sense that you have to be on call. It's an on-call lifestyle. From 37 weeks, when your client is 37 weeks onward, because they could go into labor at any point, you have to be ready to go anytime, day or night. You got to keep your phone charged and on. And so that can be a little bit difficult. You know what I mean? And then obviously, some births last a really long time.
That part,
You have to
whoo,
be there. Yeah,
bless
you have to
them.
be there, with them the whole time. And um, it's an emotionally exhausting job, a physically exhausting job, but it's very rewarding and I do really love it. And then I've also done some postpartum doula work, which I think is super important.
Can I have you to talk about that and some of the things that you have provided? Because again, postpartum is typically here in the US. Once you have the baby, you're pretty much done. And to me, that's the start of the next process
Oh yeah,
of
for sure.
getting yourself together. And if that is not included in the process, sometimes we have a hard time. So talk about that background of that.
I mean, I think postpartum doulas are super, super important. I think that it's beneficial and would be beneficial to everybody. I think, for me, it's a lot of, and every postpartum doula is different. You know what I mean? People provide different services. I know a woman who works in like Northern California, like San Francisco Bay Area, and she does like she's a mainly postpartum, well, she's a birth and postpartum doula, but she also does like postpartum nutrition. So she has whole meal plans that you can choose from where she cooks these very nutritious and very catered to the specific hormone and physical needs of a postpartum person, things like that, which I think is really, really cool. For me, it was a lot of, I mean, physical support for sure, but a lot of emotional support, being reassuring. Your immediate postpartum is very, you're coming down off of so many hormones. There's other hormones, everything's regulating and rebalancing. And
Yes.
it's a very emotional time. And having someone who can just be there to talk to, can provide you with some evidence-based advice, um, encourage you and just remind you that you're doing a good job and that everything's okay. You know what I mean? And then also if something seems not okay, it can help you, like if you're struggling with lactation or your baby's not
Hmm.
latching or things like that, can recommend some other specialists or interventions you can do, things like that. It's mostly for me, it was just a lot of emotional support.
I just love the fact that you have an outside force that can really see things before you can see those
Yeah.
things. For example, and I mentioned this before on a previous episode, when I came home, I had a C-section. Of course, because you have a C-section, the things are done out of order. So my breast was like here, like rocks, because the letdown wasn't in the natural process. And I remember asking my husband at the time, he's my ex-husband, to go and get me tea. And he
Yeah.
was like, sure, to help, with the process. And he gave me smooth move tea. And I just had a C-section.
Oh
So
no.
I'm saying with that process that if I had a specialist,
Yeah.
he can kind of guide or say, oh, let's use this. And he
Yeah.
didn't mean any harm by that,
Oh, for
but
sure. But he just
the
inexperienced and not knowledgeable. And that's another thing that's really important too, because, first of all, not everybody has a partner, but some, if you do have a partner, if you have a husband or a wife or whoever, um, a lot of a doula's job too is kind of educating them, bringing them into the process and how they can best be supportive during labor, during birth, during postpartum. Because unfortunately, and one of the things that just is sad about our country and our society in general is how we view birth and how it's become this kind of like, men are obviously, and husbands and partners are obviously more involved in the process than they ever were before.
yes,
There's still a lot of us, even women, even, not everyone who gives birth is a woman, but are very uneducated about our bodies, about the natural processes of our bodies, about how everything's going to go. So having somebody to kind of bring that education and that knowledge to the table and the support to make sure that, you understand what's happening, and then also tools and things to help, with any issues you're experiencing or even just in general, can
yeah.
be really helpful for sure.
When I had my previous guest on that was an actual doula, she brought up one thing that I remember very clearly. When she does her first assessment or consultation with the couples, if the supporting couple is not a part of the process, she will not take them on as a client
Yeah.
because she said it has to be a group effort. If not, she begins to fill in that spot, and that's not what it's about. It needs to be a team effort. Do you believe in that process as well?
I would say that I don't not take clients who have unsupportive partners. For me, I feel not that I don't respect that because I absolutely understand and I can understand having strong boundaries as a birth worker because it is something you
Yes.
have to uphold for yourself. And if that's what that person feels comfortable with and not wanting to take on this partner like relationship with their client, I can completely understand that. For me, though, I feel a little bit like, while still upholding those boundaries and not taking on that role, I feel like someone who doesn't have support from their partner probably needs the support even more from somebody else. For me personally, that's just how I feel. I feel like, because sometimes it's just a lack of education. Sometimes it's just fear that has a, I've had lots of people who have wanted home births and their partners were just very unsupportive of that. And so being able to bridge that gap for them and educate them a little bit,
Hmm.
and also empowering the birthing person to feel like this is my body and it's my choice,
Yeah.
truly. Regardless of whether this is your child, your partner's child, you're the one experiencing it, and it's
Yes.
and it's your choice.
Yeah.
It is one of those things where like nobody else is going to do this, nobody else is going to experience this, no one else is going to go through what you're going to go through, and so the choice really is yours. And empowering people to feel strong in those choices, to feel confident in those choices, and then also to hopefully navigate any unsupportive family members or partners or things like that. So they still feel confident and empowered to make those choices anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that. But as a whole, with birth working, I believe the biggest thing that you guys provide in whatever range or lane that you choose is the option to choose. A lot of
Oh, yeah.
times we don't know. I've already had my children. It's things that I know now. I'm like, wow, I wish I knew before I had my children these options. I feel like going into the hospital, which I had my children, they were really great, but they didn't put all the options on the table. And
Absolutely.
some of the options they remove. For example, some hospitals, if you have your child there, you cannot take your placenta with you if you
Oh,
choose to
yeah.
do so. I mean, it's so many layers that they tell you, oh, this, that, and it's seven other things that you have an option for. But again, if you don't know, how
You
can you
can't, yeah, you
execute
can't
that?
choose. Yeah. No, informed and educated choice is one of the most important things to me as a birth worker. Um, like I said, I don't let my personal beliefs or my personal feelings about something influence how I work with a client.
Mhm.
I very much, especially, I mean, I've worked with first time parents, I've worked with third, fourth, fifth time parents, and obviously the information or the education or the support I provide to one or the other is a little bit different. First time parents usually are a little unsure of themselves and have lots of questions and want to know lots of stuff, whereas somebody who's done this three, four times might be a little bit more settled in that and they don't need as much educational support or knowledge. But yeah, I'm very much, very, very much wanting to just provide evidence-based information, and then the choice is yours. If
Mhm.
you know all of the things and you decide you want a highly medicalized birth, you're like, hey, I feel better, I feel safer, I feel best going to a hospital, having an epidural, doing this, doing that. Just because that's not the way I would do it doesn't mean I have any problem with you doing it that way.
I do agree with that. I do think that people do have to have choice and not
Yeah.
everybody is going the same way. I say something all the time. We have seven lanes in a row. You pick what lane that works for you. And I
Yeah.
think that's what this society has been like, hey, here's what it is, and this is how you need to go. And I'm saying, no, go where you are comfortable, go where the most information works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Helping people to advocate for themselves in whatever they choose, whether they're choosing a more natural birth experience or a more medicalized birth experience, teaching them to, or helping them, not teaching them, but helping them to advocate for themselves and to be, um, strong in their choices, whatever those choices are, because sometimes, you have people trying to talk you out of things or not trying to offer you the choice when the
Absolutely.
choice really does exist. So that is a big part. Advocacy and promoting advocacy is a big part of a birth worker's job as well, for sure. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely a very strong believer in choice and everybody
Yes.
having the choice to do whatever works for them, because whatever works for you or whatever feels most comfortable and good to you is not going to be the same as the next person. So
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you for validating and just saying that because I believe in choice. With that being said, I have a question for you, my dear, surrounding music.
Okay.
Can you identify a song that you sung and you was like, okay, I love this song, and then you became an adult and you're going, wait 1 minute, I've been singing that particular song all this time, and now I know what it's talking about. Can you share a song?
Yeah, it was funny when I read that question. I was really trying to think. And like I said, I've always really loved music as well. Music's been very, influential and supportive in my life. I've found a lot of emotional outlet with music for sure. And it was funny when I was a kid, one of my favorite songs, bands was Ace of Base when I was like really little.
Really?
And yeah, I always loved that song, The Sign. Used to sing it like as like a 3-year-old. I really loved it. But so one of the songs that I thought about is All That She Wants by Ace of Base. And I used to sing that song because it's like, all that she wants is another baby. And I used to think like she wants to have a baby. Like she literally just wants to have a child, and that's what I thought that it was about forever, you know? And then, you don't, it's not like Ace of Base is very popular anymore. You don't really
But
think about that. And then,
can I just jump in?
yeah,
How old were you, or where was the time frame when you was like, wait a minute, she's not talking about having an actual
I
baby?
mean, I feel like it was like, no, I mean, maybe 10 or not even less than 10 years ago. I was definitely an adult, for sure. By the time I realized, like, oh, she's talking about sex, like it's not about having a baby. She's talking about lovers and wanting to just like, because it's a little bit more about being promiscuous, but not in like a shameful way because it isn't shameful. And it's from that perspective of just wanting to like have fun and have lovers, and I really thought it was about having literal babies.
Wow, we've all been there. We've all been there. And again, it's experience, it's perspective where we can look at it from a different way. We go, oh, I get it. But you know what? Give us a little bit of lyrics or sing a little bit because you kind of gave us a little bit of it.
um, I'm trying to think of how it goes. Uh, all that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow, boy. All that she wants is another baby. Hey. Yeah, and I was just like, why is she gone tomorrow? That's interesting. Like,
Oh, now you know.
yes, yeah. Yeah, very funny.
And the name of the song again?
It's All That She Wants by Ace of Base. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Great job. So let's get into the last thing I mentioned when I introduced you.
Oh yeah, oddities. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I've seen little, I think more of my perspective of it
Yeah.
is the wet specimens
Yeah.
where you see during Halloween they have um a fetus with one arm and two
Yeah.
heads.
Yeah.
Or you also talked about what's the proper name when you stuff a animal? It's called
Taxidermy.
taxidermy.
Yeah.
So give us some perspective and how have you been a fan because you're an enthusiast
Yeah,
and
I
we
love
know
it.
enthusiast has a high love for this space. So
Yeah.
talk to me, tell me about this process.
So ever since I was a kid, I've always been a bit macabre. I don't know if it's like because I'm an October Scorpio or what, but my birthday is so close to Halloween. I don't know. I've always just been very interested in like macabre things, in death, in like rituals surrounding death, bones, weird stuff. I was really obsessed with like ancient Egypt as a kid, and like really
Okay,
the process of like mummification was so interesting. There was a long time where I wanted to be mummified when I died. Um,
really?
Yeah. Um, and I just find it very, very interesting. And obviously, like a lot of other cultures, even modern cultures, have a lot of different, like, um, a different perspective of death and a different way of dealing with it. It's not so like behind closed doors and like, that there's a lot of cultures where they like the family prepares the body for whatever burial they're doing. They spend a lot of time with the dead body, things like that I just think are really interesting. But I mean, aside from all that, yeah, I've just always been kind of macabre. My husband and I joke about it all the time because it really is weird. It's very weird. When I was like literally 6 years old, I used to have this Halloween sounds CD. So it was literally the sounds of like creaking doors and like chains rattling and like bones crunching and stuff like that I would listen to when before I went to sleep at
Wait a
night.
minute. Okay. Every episode, I usually have a pause moment.
Yeah.
Honey, this is a pause moment.
It's so weird. It's super weird. And it's also like, why did my parents let me do that? It's very weird. I don't know. It's
Wow.
super weird. Yeah, we joke about it all the time. Like, what a little weirdo I was. Like, who does that? I don't know why. I don't know. But yeah, I've always just been very interested in that kind of stuff. And then as I grew older, oddities has become more of a thing.
Hmm.
Like it's more of like a mainstream sort of thing. Not mainstream, I guess, but a lot more people are into it. There's a big oddities expo that comes here every September to Las Vegas. They do it at the World Market Center. And me and my kids and my husband go, and my oldest daughter is into it too. She loves it.
Really?
So like, and they have, and the cool thing about it, because it kind of goes hand in hand with being a vegan. I've been vegan for almost 10 years now. And
If I
yeah,
may say, when you get through, tell us about what was the catalyst for you to
yeah,
become a vegan.
for sure. So I mean, something as being vegan that's super important to me is that everything is like ethically sourced because you hear like I'm a vegan, but I really like taxidermy is kind of like a weird thing. Like, how do you marry those two things together? But I mean, the very cool thing about the Oddities Expo, it's they do it, they travel, the expo goes all over the country, so they hold events all over the country and they have local and sometimes not local vendors who come to each, event. But the woman who runs the Oddities Expo is vegan herself. And so she
Mm,
actually makes sure that any vendor who is selling taxidermy or wet specimens or skulls or any kind of animal products that they're ethically sourced. So nothing was hunted purposefully for the, or, like killed for
hmm.
for this.
For
Um,
display.
yes, yeah. So nobody went out and killed an animal purposefully to make it into something else. It's either like roadkill or sometimes it is old museum taxidermy, which obviously the exact origins of that may not be known, but it's somebody who's, secondhand purchasing something. So it's not like they created it themselves for that purpose. Um, so that's something that's important to me that everything is ethically sourced. But yeah, I've just always been really like I've always loved finding like animal bones when you're out like hiking or something. I'll
Oh,
put
wow.
it in a bag and keep it. And I have shelves in my house that have little my daughter has a little wet specimen of like a baby octopus in a jar. We have a mummified fetal pig.
Excuse what? What? Excuse me, mummified
Yeah,
fetal pig.
yeah. So I'm assuming I don't know the exact origins of this either, but it was a pig fetus that probably either miscarried or was stillborn very early because it's pretty small, and it was just naturally mummified. Certain environmental conditions can cause mummification instead of like full on decay, so it's just a little mummified one. And then I have another. We had my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter bought it at the last not this one this year but the year before she bought a wet specimen of a pig fetus, and that's a little bigger and it's in a jar. And then this year she bought a little I let her buy something every year, one thing, because it can be a little expensive. So this year she bought a little taxidermied baby duck and it's so cute.
Oh,
Both of my kids are really obsessed with it. My 3-year-old loves to take it down and give it kisses and pet it.
and it's an actual
Baby duck.
taxidermy baby duck.
Yeah.
How big is it?
It's little. I mean, it's like a little tiny baby duck. It's got the soft little down feathers, and
See, in my eyes, I would think the taxidermy is like rough or hard or just
no,
like because the poses in scary movies or things is like,
yes, yeah. And I mean, a lot of people, their only sort of interaction or knowledge of taxidermy is like at a museum. Like you go to like a
yes,
natural history museum and you see the big taxidermied African animals or things like that.
yes,
And I mean, that's definitely taxidermy. But I mean, there's a lot of, and especially now with like oddities becoming more of a an art form and like a collector type thing, there are a lot of people who make little taxidermy like cute things, like there's a whole stall at the Oddities Expo of somebody who like taxidermies little mice and puts them in like little like sets and positions, like playing in a band,
oh,
like having a tea party, yeah.
are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
it's really cool. Yeah, and people using there's this woman I've seen at the Oddities Expo a couple of times now who makes these really beautiful wet specimens because some wet specimens are just like in a mason jar and very like, here it
Yeah.
is. but she puts the animals in like very intricate positions, and they're wrapped around like crystals, and they're in these very beautiful jars and vases and things like that. And so I mean, definitely very artistic for some people.
Do you have some kind of idea how long this has been a thing, or has it always been a thing? It's just now it's mainstream, meaning
Yeah.
it's people that did it behind closed doors
Yeah,
and
I
now they're
think
like out.
yeah. I think people were definitely always collecting things like this or into stuff like this, but I think it was probably for, I mean, understandably sort of, viewed as very like weird and, creepy for a long time. Whereas now it's a little bit more like, oh, yeah, some people do that. Um, I don't know. I wouldn't say like how long, I don't know for sure how long it's been a little more mainstream. They had this show, what was it on? Maybe it was on like, I can't remember what channel it was on, but it was called Oddities, and it was about a little oddities store in New York City, run by these two people and how they go about purchasing things or selling things. People come into their store because I mean, Oddities isn't always just like taxidermy or bones. It's also a lot of like vintage and antique items.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, like if you walk into an oddity store, like you'll see taxidermy, you'll see bones, you'll see wet specimens, but you also see like a really old doll, like from the 20s or even earlier, or you'll see like vintage or like antique medical equipment.
Mm.
Lots of old another common thing is like old like vials, like glass vials that used to house like poison or like
Oh.
weird medicines that they don't make anymore because we realized they were crazy. Stuff like that. So it really encompasses a very broad range of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's really fascinating. I think it's really interesting. But like I said, I'm a weird macabre person in general. I have very lofty dreams of owning a human skull one day.
Why? Can you tell me why?
I just think it's cool. I mean, obviously, when you own human remains, they either have to be like so old that and certain countries, certain states have different laws about the owning of human remains. Um, but as a whole, as long as it was either like, because a lot of people donate their bodies to science
Yes.
and medical institutions like colleges or wherever medical schools will, once they're done with something, full articulated human skeletons that they were using for anatomy classes or things like that, they will sell them or get rid of them, and private collectors buy them. And that was somebody who consented to having their body donated.
Yes.
But yeah, I just think it's cool and interesting.
Well, let me tell you, honey, you have given me a whole rundown that I had
Yeah.
no idea about. Again, I'll reference like you see scary movies or you
Yeah.
see things, and that has been the gist of it. So, and the mere fact that you say it can be antique things as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It doesn't have to be bones or any, a lot of people are just really interested in like antique medical equipment. And there's a lot of like quack medical devices. A long time ago we were really people were really obsessed, the medical profession was really obsessed with the idea of electricity solving everything. So there was a lot of these like quack medical devices that didn't actually work or do anything that like, you
probably
know,
kill the people.
yeah, I mean, definitely there's some stuff like that, but just definitely just kind of anything that's a little bit weird, you know what
Well,
I mean?
when you say that, what comes to mind is at one point, and I may be getting it wrong, it's called a lobotomy, where they would drill
Oh,
a
yeah.
hole through,
Yeah.
and they said, oh, to release a spirit. And it was totally antiquated, out of order, just really crazy stuff. But people have produced things to drill a hole in your head.
Yeah, lobotomies or like bloodletting was a really big thing because people used to think that like your blood, like if you were sick or you had something wrong with you, it was in your blood. And so if you just like got rid of some blood, then you'd be fine. So they have like little bloodletting kits or things like that, yeah. It's very,
Again, everybody
yeah.
each to their own. That's
Yeah.
barbaric, but
Oh, no, for sure it is. Yeah. And it's a very antiquated process. Nobody does that anymore, but they, sometimes you find old equipment and it's like, wow, look how crazy this is.
yeah.
People collect all sorts of weird things. I don't have a big collection because oddities can be expensive. A human skull is expensive. I don't have one. Maybe one day.
Well, okay, human skull. We'll move
Yeah.
right along. We'll go back to music. Can you identify a song that, sometimes we have to say something to someone and we're sometimes not that we're at a loss for words,
Yeah.
but it's easier to put a song on to kind of express how you feel. Can you identify a song that you have used in place of saying the words? You kind of put it on and let it speak on your behalf.
Yeah, it's this one I struggled with a little bit when I read the questions for this interview. But something I thought of, and because it's kind of come up again recently in my life with the postpartum depression and anxiety and feeling really bad about myself, I've always been someone who's very insecure. I mean, society does that to women in general. As a woman yourself, I'm sure you know
Hmm.
that society makes us feel not very good about ourselves. And I've really struggled with that a lot in my life. My mom was very critical of me when I was growing up physically. She would make a lot of comments and things like that. And so it's something that I've just kind of internalized from society, from my mom, from just life. And I've had a lot of struggles with myself, like my weight and the way that I look and things like that for a long time.
And by the way, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And
You're
I'm not just saying that to say that.
no, thank you. You're very sweet. It's gotten better as I've gotten older, and there's an interesting thing about pregnancy because a lot of people have really tough times with pregnancy and they don't feel good in their bodies. They have,
I loved it.
I did too. And when I was pregnant with my first daughter was one of the first times in my life where I ever felt beautiful and I felt so good in my body. And I felt
Wow.
so like strong and beautiful and like a goddess, and I just felt so right. Um, and so that was a catalyst for starting to help me love my body a little bit. It's something I still struggle with and I'm working on, the self-love. But it's interesting because, talking to my husband's like, "You're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful," and while I can appreciate that, but he's also somebody who like if he doesn't work out, he loses weight. You know what I mean? He's that
Oh,
kind of
that
person. Like
we
yeah.
all know someone like that.
Yes, yeah. So he doesn't know the struggle of like dieting or what it's like to feel like you need to restrict yourself in order to be worthy or in order to be beautiful or in order, and he just doesn't have the experience with that. He doesn't know what it's like to feel that way and also to feel like you need to how other people, worrying about how other people perceive you in that way and all the things we try to do and not do in order to
Hmm.
be this idealized version of ourselves. So there's this song, and it's a newer song. I'm pretty sure that the dude who sings it is like a TikTok star or something.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
have TikTok, but I did find him on Instagram. And he just releases music like on his own, he doesn't, it's not like you're gonna hear it on the radio or anything. But it's
Sometimes that's the best kind of
yeah,
music.
no. Yeah, it's and his I think it's funny because I wasn't like a bigger kid. I was always very skinny as a child and being bigger or gaining my weight issues never happened until I was older. And he was a person who like was a bigger kid and all the things that come along with being teased and bullied for being a little bit bigger when you're a child. And the song's called Feel Good and his name is Ryan Nealon and it's just about that. And I didn't put it on necessarily like with the intention of being like to my husband, like, this is what it feels like. But it
Hmm.
was something that he was listening to and he was kind of like, what is this song? And I was like, it's real. Like, this is how it feels sometimes. You know what I mean? This is how it feels to be super self-conscious about your body and to, there's a line in it. Oh, gosh, again, I can't think because you're on the spot because I have to know it right now. I can't think about it.
Well, we talk about that all the time on this platform when you're put on the spot, but if the music is playing, oh, you sing right along to it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh no, I know the words to every song ever, but I can't. Don't ask me right now because now I can't remember. Um, but there's a line in this song that I really, I mean, I don't know if I relate to it so much, but it still hit me like super hard because he says, I never should have gone there and taken off my clothes, let you find out what I already know, that I'm still the punchline of childhood jokes because I carry dead weight and it shows.
Wow. You
Yeah.
know, that is definitely a path that some people feel really close to.
Yeah.
We definitely, and I'm a big proponent on this platform. I talk about self love. I said, when you have self love, then you can give love out to anyone else. Another thing I do love that you said, I'm working on my self love. And
Yeah.
think about when you're a child, in that I think it's your first 3 years or your first 5 years, you're so impressionable.
Yeah. You'll
And
learn.
if you have the person that you look up to, that loves you, that feeds you, that bathes you, that critiques you, then you begin to take on that cloak of, am I enough?
Absolutely.
We've all suffered, where I'm like, oh, this don't look right, but I've never had that intense part of the process. Can you speak to someone right now? Because I have this invisible pew that I always talk about, that you can give them some insight to love their self a little bit more based off of what you've done.
I think one of the things that's helped me, like I said, it's something I still struggle with, you know what I mean? And that's the thing about like body dysmorphia is that it's not intellectual, you know what I mean? Like it's just this thing that you don't have a lot of control over. It's almost like a mental illness in a way or a mental health issue where you don't see yourself properly. You see yourself through this very skewed lens of whatever you've experienced in your life, whatever you've been told in your life, whatever you've internalized, and what traumas you have, and things like that. And this neutrality idea, or this idea that like you can just be grateful and be happy for your body just being your body.
Yes,
I'm so grateful that I can walk.
say that.
I am healthy enough to do this or do that. It doesn't have to be about the way that you look necessarily, but just the things that your body does for you on a daily basis and the strength of your body and trying to appreciate those aspects of your body. And it's kind of a big thing, especially in like, in like mom communities or whatever, because obviously your body changes so much after
That
pregnancy.
is true.
It takes a toll on you physically, and that can be really difficult. And sometimes just focusing in on like, wow, even though there was physical changes that came along with this, like I grew a whole human being inside of my body. I birthed it into the world. Like this was my baby's home, and all of these marks and these things that are evidence of that are evidence that I did something incredible, and just trying to appreciate your body for what it gives you and what it allows you to do rather than how it looks,
Yeah. No,
is really.
I think everything you said is definitely valid. I think we have lost the spiritual part of our bodies. We only look at the physical part of our bodies. Also, another level, from my perspective, is releasing. I forget the name of the book, but it says the body holds account.
Oh yeah, for sure.
With that being said, yes, it holds account, but we also have to find a way to release and let go so we can. When you release, now you have the opportunity to put something else in that space. If you're taking a beautiful picture down from a spot, now you have an opportunity to put another beautiful picture up. But I think those things are not talked about, and we hold that space so secure, like this is what has happened to me. And I'm not saying because it takes space, I'm just talking about me.
Oh, for sure.
I'm in the release part of my life. Like, okay, I release that. It has not been easy.
No, for
And I
sure.
know I will be challenged on something. And I'm like, oh, I'm done with that. And guess what? It's going to come and say,
Back
oh,
up.
you're
Yeah.
really done? Let me see how well you're done.
Yeah.
So I would offer uh, to look at things, to examine it, release it, and put something else in place. And that's what I'm doing for me.
Yeah.
And I love that you did talk about that. It doesn't always have to be, because we're not going to be physically beautiful every day.
Or feel that way. Yeah.
Correct.
Feel. physically beautiful every day.
That's
Yeah.
real. That's natural.
Yeah.
But also too, we should be spiritually elevated. That be like, because when I get in that mirror, I said, girlfriend,
Yeah.
you are beautiful. I love you. And one of my things I even talk about when I'm having side discussion with women, a lot of times we try to divert and do other things instead of dealing with the things that we need to deal with for self. One of the things is looking in the mirror and telling yourself, I love you. If you
Yeah.
cannot do that, you're not ready to help anyone else.
Yeah.
If you
Absolutely.
cannot stay in a home by yourself for 24 to 48 hours without losing your mind, you're not ready to help someone else. So
Sure.
we have to, this is my perspective, work on you. And it is never a perfect time, but work on you so you can help others.
Yeah, absolutely. Letting go of things is obviously very hard, very scary.
Yes,
And especially things that you've held on to for such a long time. Sometimes that can be comforting, even if it's something negative. But yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Just sometimes just not making it about how you look. It's just about, like that gratitude and the spirituality sense of like, I'm grateful for my body and the strength and the health that I have because that's powerful. You know what I mean? I
absolutely.
sick. I could be weak. I could be physically disabled, and I'm not. And my body's powerful. It's strong. And I mean, even if you are, it's not like you can't find, things about your body that are good and strong and healthy. Even if you have physical disabilities or illnesses or whatever, it's finding that thing about yourself that you feel like even if I don't feel great physically about how I look or how other people perceive me, I can thank my body for all the things that it does for me every day, the way that it keeps
Hallelujah.
me every day. Yeah, for sure.
Hallelujah. I agree with you 100%. I believe in this. The power of the tongue has life and death. That is now you speaking life over yourself, gratitude, and something I say on this podcast all the time, whatever I do frequently becomes my frequency. And
Yeah.
you want to be in a frequency of high elevation, speaking love, like you talked about, speaking gratitude, and all of those great things around yourself. Because what you're doing with your mouth, you're creating a invisible feel around you. So when those things come, guess what? Before it even got to you, it bounced back. And that's my perspective.
Absolutely, because I did grow up in a family, and especially like my mom and my sister, and I heard a lot of women in my life speaking very negatively about themselves. And so I did that too. And it's
Mm-hmm.
something I still struggle with, this really, really negative self-talk. And you almost do it as like a joke and it's funny and whatever, but
But the universe or God or whatever you believe don't believe it's a joke. You said it, so now it's
yeah.
going to come to fruition.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where you make jokes about things that are real. You know what I mean? So it's like you're trying to make it a joke, it's trying to be funny, but it is really how you feel. And when you're constantly putting that out there and you're constantly telling yourself these things, you can't help but to internalize them and to feel that way, really. So you do have to be careful with how you talk to yourself because it can become a problem very
Yeah.
quickly. You know what I mean?
Well, you're a manifester. We're all manifestors. So when you do that, you are now creating your energy field to create that. And you're like, okay, I'm just joking. Oh, I don't like my eyes. Oh, I'm just joking. I don't like my eyes. Now, over time, you don't like your eyes because you created that energy, so to speak. So
Yeah.
thank you for diving into that, providing that song, sharing your perspective, because I believe it will help someone, whether it's today, tomorrow, or a year from now, that you just were open with this process.
Thank you.
Now, before we get out of here, young lady, I have one more song question for you.
Okay.
If you had to dedicate a song to the world, what song would you give to the world that represents you?
I mean, I guess I didn't think about it well, I mean, I guess it represents me and it represents my perspective. I feel like it's kind of cliche, but
That's okay.
yeah, no, no, no. But it is because it's very obvious like that's the message of the song, but it's a powerful song and like her voice and the way she sings it, like it's so beautiful and so powerful. And that's the message of the song, really. Like, we've all been through things, currently going through things that are traumatic, that are hard, that are difficult, and you do feel like you want to give up. It's not, I've never personally felt like suicidal ever or anything like that, but sometimes you just feel like it's too much and like you can't handle something, or like you're not good enough and you're not strong enough to handle something, but you do have to just keep trying, and I think that's one of the most important things. I think that's, and especially like our in the world right now, in our country, all the craziness that's going on right now. I think it's like everyone, something that I really strongly believe in is like the only way that we can have a better world is if everyone is doing the most to be the best version of themselves. You can't like change everybody else around you. The only person you have control over truly in this life is yourself. And so if you're trying truly to be your best self, then that's how the world can be a better place. You know what I mean? That's why I'm vegan. I'm not one of those kinds of people who goes out and is like trying to convert everybody else to being vegan. You know what I mean? But like for me personally, it was like, this is how I can make the best choice for myself. This is
Mhm.
how, because I'm not vegan for health. I still eat unhealthy foods sometimes. But like for me, being vegan was about more of an ethical and environmental thing. For animals and for the world. Animal agriculture and factory farming is one of the biggest contributors to global warming and climate change,
Mm.
which a lot of people don't know. And, so it was just about like, this is a personal choice that I can make because I can't control anybody else that can make a difference. And if
Exactly.
I'm committing to not supporting this type of practice or this industry with my dollar, with my time, with my energy, whatever, that's what I can do.
Hmm.
Um, so the song that I thought up was Rise Up by Andra Day, which is a lot of people know that song. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean
Yes.
when you're broken down and tired, and you just feel like you can't do it anymore, you
Oh
just
no,
have
honey, you're not gonna skip over. You tried to just say, "Oh,
I
when you're
can't
broke." No,
sing that
no,
song.
you got to give me a little. She was like, "Oh, when you're broken down." We know she says that. Give us some lyrics.
Okay, hold on, let me look them up because
Okay,
when the silent I can't sing this song. I
that's
don't have
okay. Do it from your
yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. And you have to keep trying. You have to just
Yes.
get up every day. I've had some experience, like personal experiences with people in my family who um don't have that in them or haven't been able to find that within themselves, that like you just got to get up and do
Mm-hmm.
your best every day. And it's sad to see. It's hard to watch somebody you love um fall deeper and deeper into a negative space, into a really bad toxic space that's so not
Mm-hmm.
good for them, and they just haven't been able to find that thing inside of them that says like you just get up and you keep going. And um I think,
Resilience.
yeah, because it's really easy. Your circumstances, life is stacked against you in a lot of ways. And for certain people specifically, like nothing out there is trying to make it easier for you. And when you have a bad, something happens. I mean, that's like how people become unhoused. It's everyone thinks like, oh, they're just lazy, they don't care. But something happens to somebody. And obviously there's, a myriad things that can happen to end up, but one thing happens and it's a catalyst for all these other things, and people try, but they're just not able to. And it's just finding that strength within yourself to keep going despite it all,
Yeah.
and to keep showing up every day is
Yes.
really difficult for some people. And I've had experiences with people very close to me where I've been worried and scared that they're going to give up, you know what I mean? And trying to help them feel like no matter what, it's never the end
Mm-hmm.
until you're dead. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't have to, you can find that strength within you and find support from the people around you. I think something, especially like in American modern society, don't ask for help. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you have to do it alone. And like while that's part of it, you do have to find that inner strength, leaning on people and really letting yourself be vulnerable, letting yourself ask for help.
yeah, yeah,
That's something that's hard for me, so I know it's hard for other people, you know what I mean? To tell somebody I need help
yeah,
and to let that person help you and support you in ways that feel scary, that feel vulnerable is really important. So,
yeah. I also would encourage any kind of way to create a village. I
yeah.
have been so blessed because of the village, and my village includes coworkers, it includes family, includes my children, it includes my mother, it includes my sisters, even people that I may not have known that has encouraged me. And I think I am stronger. I think I am resilient because of that village that I can tap in when I'm like, oh, and they encourage me. They're like my backbone.
Yeah.
But with that being said, because I had love for myself, I can tap into that village and say, listen, this is what I'm struggling with today. Can
Yeah.
somebody tap in and help me out?
Like RuPaul says, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else if you can't love yourself?
Oh, wait, wait, wait. Say that again,
He
honey,
says
because
it,
I believe
RuPaul
in
says
that.
it at the end of every Drag Race episode, which I love Drag Race. He says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? And it's true, you know? It's very true
Yes,
because I feel like a lot of people do find that they feel like they love everyone else, but they don't like themselves at all. And you can't really be operating from a place of love or operating as your best self if you don't love yourself. You know what I mean?
and
And you
that's
don't
why
need
I
to love
promote
everybody.
self-love.
Yeah. And having a village is really, really important. I think that's something that became even more apparent to me after becoming a mom and becoming a parent, how isolated we are in our modern society and how much you're just supposed to deal with it all on your own and how difficult that is. And having, not everyone has a great biological family. I don't. I mean, I do. I'm grateful. I have three nieces who are now adults who are amazing, wonderful people, and I love them so much, and they're so supportive and loving. Um, and then you have your chosen family, friends, and people
Correct.
you can surround yourself with who really care about you and who want to see you be successful and want to see you thrive. And that makes such a difference for your own happiness and your own
Yes.
peace of mind and well-being. Having people in your life who you feel like you can turn to and who aren't going to judge you and who are going to support you and be there for you is really, really big. So I'm
No,
grateful I have people like that too.
I definitely agree. This has been such an interesting, amazing
Thank you.
interview.
Thank you.
I love that you were very transparent with your perspective on things. I love that you were able to teach me a couple of things or two that I had no idea about. I just have really enjoyed this process.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
before we get out of here, I'll talk about the journey and the destination. The journey is where we learn and where we grow. The destination is where we celebrate. So many times people work, 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 and they never get to the destination to celebrate, to say, hey, we've done this. But when it's all said and done, we have to get back into that journey so we can continue to learn, we continue to elevate, and we'll look for that next time, that next destination to have that fun. But with that being said, all my men that come onto my podcast, I salute them, and my women, I bow. So I bow to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for being a part of Message Reveal.
Yeah.
And before we get out of here, I always, always give my guests the absolutely last words. So, last words go to you, my dear.
Last words. I don't know. I think one of the biggest things for me as I've gotten older and more worldly, is that just be who you are. Be who you
Yes,
are and love other people for who they are. Whatever your personal beliefs are, whatever that's a big thing right now in our country, people trying to impose their personal beliefs on other
girl.
people. I think one of the biggest things is that like it never takes away from you to let somebody else be who they are. Um, so just live and let live, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And one last thing before we get out of here, I wanted to mention that, but I think it was so apropos that your last name is Strange.
I actually chose that name for myself. When my husband, it started kind of as like a joke a long time ago when my husband and I were first dating. I was like, I have my old last name, my maiden name, was something that was very hard to pronounce and spell. People always said it wrong, spelled it wrong. It was annoying. And my husband had a very boring last name. And so I was like, what if when we get married, we just pick a new last name for ourselves instead of like me taking your name? Because I didn't necessarily want to keep mine. It was dumb. And neither of us have this like antiquated idea of like men must carry on their legacy or whatever, you know? And so yeah, we did when we didn't get married until after our first child was born. So she was actually the first one to have the Strange last name. We came up with Strange and it just felt fitting. Um, and so when our child was born, our daughter was born, we gave her the last name Strange. And then my husband legally changed his name. You had to pay and do the whole process of that. And then that way, when we got married, I did just take his new last name so that I didn't have to do all the paying and stuff.
Oh,
'Cause it's free when you want to take a man's last name when you get married. Um,
isn't that
but
something?
yeah, but so he changed his name and then I did take that name. But yeah, that's actually the name that we chose for ourselves. My last name used to be AC, spelled Asay. So yeah, you'd say AC and people thought you were spelling, so they'd always put AC and they'd be like, what next?
Yes.
And people would always, because it's spelled weird, people would always call me Amanda Assay or Amanda Assay. So that was stupid. And then my husband's last name used to be Pearson, which is just boring. So yeah, we picked Strange for ourselves, and I think it's very fitting. Yeah.
Well, I just I was like, I just couldn't get, I said, wow, her name lines up with who she is. I didn't know you went and chose the
Yeah,
last
we
name.
did.
So, just so you know, Amanda Strange, I will never forget your name and you. And you
Yeah.
guys, please, please put your hands together and thank my special guest, Amanda
Thank you so much. It was
Strange.
really a pleasure. I really appreciated and enjoyed being here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And I say to all my guests, I'll see you out here in these Las Vegas streets or Trader Joe's where I met you.
That's where I'm at usually.